What's up, guys? Welcome to the harbor. Today is Writing Wednesday. Today, we're going to go through 10 easy steps that you can do to write your first novel. Step number 10. Know where to start. Do you have an idea? Well, work with that idea first to see where you can go with it. Is your idea about a ring? Well, where do they take the ring? To a location. Well, there's your setting. Who's taking the ring to the location? What's the struggle that they go through? You just build off of that idea and it blossoms like a beautiful flower. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? There are 3 things that you need to know before going into your initial idea. You need to develop the plot, the structure, and the characters. Doesn't matter which one, they all 3 can coexist in the world of worlds simultaneously. Tip number 9. Know when to start your story, the story plot line, the ideas that you came up with. Where should you start writing? I like to start at the end of the race and then work my way backwards, because I always like to know where I'm heading. If you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. You don't travel the world without a map unless you're crazy. Tip number 8. Outlining. Should you outline? If you should, how much? I believe that you should outline as much as you possibly can at the beginning. Write down everything, every idea that pops into your head. So therefore, there's not a nook and cranny that has not been, explored in the beginning. For example, I had this dream of where I was this character who jumped into somebody else's body. He didn't know why or what. All he knew was that he had special abilities. So he used those abilities to find out what was happening to himself. For some reason, the plot was in the middle of a school, or of the setting, and I was doing all this crazy stuff, and everything was happening, and people were getting hurt, and the police weren't getting involved. Obviously, they weren't getting involved because it was a dream, but when I woke up, I was trying to think of how I could make this a book. And so my idea was the idea that the police did not get involved was because they were in a very rural, whatever, that word, environment, and the police couldn't get there quick enough before I managed to everything up. You know what I'm saying? Build off of your initial idea, see where you can take it from there. And that is very detailed, so, because I lived it, so to speak. But just because yours wasn't a dream doesn't mean you can't think that hard, you know what I'm saying? Tip number 7. Let's say you have a plethora of material, of lore, of backstory. Where should you actually start writing once your outline is completed? Well, that really depends where your initial pop moment is. They're plucked out of their precious normality and they're thrown into something that changes. It could be anything. It could be a death, it could be a phone call, they're fired from their job, they meet the love of their life dies, something big. It can't be like, I'm sick and I'm not going to go to work today. That changed one day, and then he goes back to his normal routine. It has to be something to where there is no way to go back. Tip number 6. Know why you're writing what you're writing. If your plan is to get famous and be rich, you should probably just stop while you're behind, because you won't finish. You have to have a goal, have a purpose. Maybe writing this for your children, because your children really want to read it. Of course you're going to finish it. It has to be at that level. It has to be something that you can show your grandchildren. It has to have meaning behind it, because if you're just pumping out words just to do your thing, boo, you're not going to get done. It just won't. Or it will be complete shit. Tip number 5. Do your homework. Make sure you know what you're talking about. You don't want to have the French Revolutionary War, and they won. They didn't. You gotta know what you're talking about. I did a lot of research on genetic mutation when I was, they're basically mutants, for lack of a better term, and I had to know what I was talking about to make it scientifically accurate. So if somebody came along, I'd be like, you could, wait. Wait. No. Oh, and that also goes for plot holes. Make sure you review your story. You don't want to sound like a dumb when you read back and you're like, I could have just used a time turner this entire time. Tip number 4. Make it great, not good. This is your brainchild, your birth. You don't show your children to people and be like, hey, this is my son. He's alright. You know, you'd be like, hey, this is my son. He's fantastic. Thanks for asking. You gotta treat it like that, because thousands of people could see this. You don't want to shit all over your brainchild and be like, it's alright. And you're trying to sell it. Why would you need food to survive? Of course, every author is like, oh, it's amazing, my book's amazing. Well, have some backbone to it. Do your research. Know what you're talking about. Have a purpose. Know your audience. You're not going to write about some fantasy world in hell when your target audience is old people. That they just won't read it. Then you'll get really confused why they aren't reading it. Which brings us to step 3. Know your audience. That's just self-explanatory. You have to know who you're writing for to target them solely. 18 to 25, 7 to 14, 1 to 6. Hell, I don't know, maybe you're writing for babies. Old people, it doesn't matter. You have to know who you're writing for and target them. It's a business, it's a market. Know what you're doing. Step number 2. This kind of goes in with the whole outlining process. I don't know what it's really called. I can't find the source video. I'll link it in the description if I do find it. I call it the W method. Basically, you got this beginning, where he starts. You got the crease, which is the initial pop, the reason his life changes. And you got the climax. Then you got your second lowest point to make shit really, really bad. And then you got the resolution. And if you have multiple books, you can just put them together and they just keep going along in a circle until your story's done. I'm writing 5 books, so I have 5 W's in a circle, and it was on the wall right there. That's a dry erase board. It's fantastic. I advise buying one. Yeah, it really helps. You don't even have to be detailed. You could just write the points, and if something really important happens in the middle, just be like one sentence. Be like, Samantha dies. That's not even that important, maybe, but it's important at the time, so write it down. Trust me, writing everything down, especially with the W method, you will not regret that decision. You're welcome. Tip number 1, the most important one. If you don't do any of these, at least do this one. You have to be true to your characters. If your character would not do that, don't make him do that just because you want him to. He will resent it, and it won't make sense. If you throw him into a scenario in which he normally wouldn't be in, make him react the way that his personality would react. If you're an accountant and you love crunching numbers and then you're thrown into a factory work job, you're not going to just pick it up like you're going to be like, I don't know what's happening. I don't like this. I don't want to be here. I stand up too much. I want to sit down and work on my computer. You're going to resent where you are. At least be true to that, because that's what makes characters believable. That's what people can cling on to. The plot could be amazing and woo, and if your characters suck, most likely they're not going to invest in something. They're gonna be like, well, that plot is so juicy, but those characters, god, they're boring. Be true to your characters. If you take anything away from that, you have to do that. J.K. Rowling told the producers before they made the Harry Potter films is, because there's so much source material, of course they couldn't do it scene for scene. The movie would be 12 hours long. And they wanted to address her and to make sure that she knew that. And she said, if anything, if possible, stay true to the characters. And that was the greatest tip I've ever heard. And there you go, guys. That was 10 steps to writing your very first novel. You could plan for 20 years, and if you don't pay attention to these steps, at least so a basic sense, it's not going to be that good. Just remember, stay true to your characters. That's the most important one. Outline is very important. You gotta know where you're going. Don't write to write. Stephen King is the only man who can do that, but he's on another level. You can't compare yourself to a god. It's just not possible. He had the nerve to tell on Twitter, he said, under no circumstance should a novel take longer than 3 months to write from scratch. Jesus Christ, man. What do you expect from me? Holy shit. Well, that's gonna be it for today, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you again in the next video whenever I make. Johnny.